Good morning, everybody. Good morning, KFA. Good morning, Legal AFers. Good morning, Midas Mighty. We're now in week 5, day 16. Just a few moments. We expect today to be a very eventful day at Donald Trump's criminal trial. I think we all expect Michael Cohen is going to either be testifying right away or shortly today in the morning session, perhaps in the afternoon, but we expect Michael Cohen to be the big witness this week. Recall that we won't have trial this week on Wednesday because court is always dark on Wednesday. And then Friday, Donald Trump previously requested off for Barron's graduation, whether or not Trump actually attends that. So we're only going to have trial this week on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Will that be enough to get through all of Michael Cohen's testimony? But all eyes are on the Manhattan courtroom this week. All eyes on Michael Cohen. Karen, what do you expect to happen today?
So it's a really, really big week and a really big day that Michael Cohen is testifying. And so let's just remind everyone where we are so that they know what to listen for with Michael Cohen. So don't forget, Donald Trump is charged with 34 counts of falsifying a business record in the first degree, a Class E felony. And they relate to 11 separate payments that were made in order to spread out the reimbursement to Michael Cohen regarding Stormy Daniels' hush money that they were trying to hide that it was coming from Donald Trump. Michael Cohen is going to talk now. The caveat, unlike you, Ben, I've never spoken to Michael Cohen ever in my life. I don't know him. Despite the fact that my firm represents him, I'm walled off from it. So everything I'm saying is completely just from looking at the evidence, watching much of the trial, reviewing the transcripts, etc., the DA's statement of facts. And so this is just my former prosecutor's view of the evidence and what I anticipate he's going to say and why he's such a critical witness for the jury to hear from. So first of all, you're going to hear some negative stuff about Michael Cohen because the prosecutor is going to want to take the sting out of a lot of what the cross-examination is going to be. So there's no secrets about what the cross will be and how they're going to cross him. It's going to talk about his criminal history with going to prison. He pled guilty to both things that had to do with Donald Trump and things that didn't have to do with Donald Trump. And you can imagine that they are going to, on cross, focus on the crimes that he has pled guilty to that had nothing to do with Donald Trump, because they're going to try to paint him to be a criminal. And they're going to say he's the criminal, that he totally created this scheme and he's the one who's guilty, that the feds passed on bringing this case, and that they're just going to say, look, Donald Trump, if I hired a lawyer, if my lawyer put it a certain way in certain business in certain records, that's on him. I don't know what I'm a busy guy. I don't pay attention to those little details. He's a lawyer. They put him in his lawyer's fees. It should be fine. That's going to be the defense here. And they're going to paint Michael Cohen to be a liar and a criminal and the one who did all of this on his own. And so the prosecution is going to want to take the sting out of that. So you're going to hear a lot about that. You're going to hear them bring a lot of the negative stuff out, because otherwise you don't want to just paint him to be somebody who is, has nothing in no baggage, because then on cross it comes out like, aha, isn't it true, all these things. If I'm, the prosecutor wants to own it all and say, look, this is who you are, explain it here. And so you're going to hear a lot of that today. The other thing you're going to hear about is all of the corroboration of Michael Cohen. Now, in New York, you don't need to corroborate a witness for somebody to be convicted of a crime. The words of a person testifying under oath, if the jury credits them alone, is enough to convict somebody. You don't need corroboration. However, why do we talk about corroboration in this case? Why is the prosecution bending over backwards to corroborate Michael Cohen? Why are we hearing from Michael Cohen almost last in all of this? That's because the prosecution wants to corroborate him so that when he does testify, the jury is going to say, oh, I heard that before. Oh, I saw proof of that before. Why? Because among his criminal convictions he is convicted for perjury or for lying to Congress. That means he raised his right hand, he swore to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, and lied and admitted to lying. And so on summation, they're going to say, he's somebody who would raise his right hand, swear to tell the truth, and lie to your face. He's convicted of that. And so how can you trust his words to convict somebody beyond a reasonable doubt? So that's why the DA's office has painstakingly tried to corroborate every single word out of his mouth so that you can not take his word for it only. You can also look at the corroboration. And the interesting thing, and something to keep in mind, that hopefully it's this very small point, but I think it's an important point. If you're the district attorney and you are interviewing Michael Cohen and you're trying to see, is there a case here? Is there not a case? You're going to listen to his factual recitation. You're going to listen to all the details. And then you're going to go out and try to corroborate what he says. And if everything turns out to be true, all these little things like, yeah, I met in the Oval Office in February of 2017. And guess what? There's a ledger entry from a meeting in February of 2017. Or, yeah, we talked on the phone on such and such a date, and this is what he told me. Oh, look, I got his phone records. It's corroborated. It goes in that order, not the other way around. It's not like the prosecution goes and gets all this corroboration and then he tailors his testimony to it, right? This stuff is there. Every single thing he said, they went out and they issued subpoenas and they went and got all that stuff. And it all corroborated him. So that is really, really powerful. So these are the things that I think his testimony is going to specifically talk about, okay? He is going to specifically talk about, number one, that it was Trump's intent to benefit his campaign. And I'm getting all of this from my friend Norm Eisen, who I love to give credit to for all of this stuff, because he literally is doing a lot of work to put all this stuff together so that we can all understand it well. So he said that Trump's intent was to benefit his campaign. And that's number one that he's going to talk about. He's going to testify that based on his conversations with Trump, that the purpose of the payment to Daniels and later the record falsification was to benefit his 2016 presidential campaign. And what is the corroboration that the prosecution has already provided for that? Number one, David Pecker, who testified, right? He testified that he met with Trump and Cohen at the Trump Tower meeting in 2015 to hatch the catch and kill conspiracy with the explicit purpose of benefiting Trump's campaign. Pecker also explained that for the scheme to further benefit Trump's campaign, he later set in motion the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. So Cohen's going to say, look, he discussed the payment with Trump. His purpose included benefiting the campaign. Doesn't have to be the only purpose. It could also be, yeah, I didn't want my wife to know either, but it has to be one of the purposes. And that intent is clearly been corroborated by David Pecker, okay, and Cohen's going to talk about it too. Another example is the jury heard evidence of Trump's own words suggesting that the purpose of the scheme was to benefit the campaign from Hope Hicks, right? Hope Hicks was such a powerful witness that I described as the Perry Mason moment, because it's like she realized what she had said was so damaging to Trump's defense. And then she broke down in tears when she testified that when the scandal emerged in 2018, Trump told her it was better that we're dealing with this now because it would have been bad if the story came out before the election. That's very powerful, right? Because she's somebody who's on his side. She also further testified that Trump admitted to her that he knew Cohen had paid Daniels. And that was also, again, very, very powerful and damaging evidence that was corroborative of what you're going to hear from Michael Cohen. And look, she also said she didn't believe that Cohen made the payment out of the goodness of his own heart without Trump's direction. She's like, that's implausible. He's not like that. He's not the kind of guy who's going to do that out of his own heart. So that's number one of corroboration that I expect. That's number one, the kind of big area that I think Michael Cohen's going to testify to, that his intent was to benefit the campaign. Number two, the Trump Tower meetings formulating the scheme. Okay, the scheme to not just pay him back $130,000 and reimburse him, but let's hide what this is. I don't want this coming back to me. So we're going to spread it out. We're going to gross up the wages so you can claim it as income tax. We're going to hide other things in this invoice, like that $50,000 to that fake polling organization. Let's just make it so that it doesn't look like $130,000, so that it can never be tied back to Trump. Okay, he's going to talk about that, where that there were Trump Tower meetings formulating the scheme. Okay, so he's going to say that between October 10th and October 28th, 2016, the Weisselberg, Trump, and Cohen agreed to pay $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, and that it's not a lot of money, that Trump said it's not a lot of money. We should just do it. Go ahead and do it. And allegedly, Trump directed Cohen and Weisselberg to figure this all out. Now, again, that's going to be something that cuts both ways. The figure this all out, Trump's going to say, yeah, I was going to pay her back. That's not illegal, but you guys figure it out. They're the ones who devised the scheme to falsify business records. And so I expect that Cohen's going to be the one to provide the link that Trump knew, but hopefully, because that's what makes him guilty. So he will also testify that the two allegedly met again in early January at Trump Tower to do just that, and then confirmed it with Trump. So that's corroborated through the Weisselberg handwriting. That's exhibits 35 and 36. I think that was really powerful evidence that came out through McConney, and who testified he recognized Weisselberg's handwriting that sort of spells out the scheme. Keith Davidson also, don't forget, he's the one who was Stormy Daniels' former attorney who negotiated the hush money payment. He made clear during his testimony that he believed Trump was responsible for the final approval of the funds and that Cohen needed his approval. Again, that's also corroborative of Cohen. And then you also heard from former Trump Organization accountant Deborah Tarasoff, that told the jury that Trump was directly involved in reimbursing Cohen. She detailed how payments shifted from Trump's revocable trust to personally being made by Trump in 2017. Again, just showing that he understood, he was personally engaged about where these funds were coming from and how they were processed. She said that Trump's would sign them, and they would be delivered, etc. So again, that's very powerful evidence corroborating Cohen. The third thing I expect Michael Cohen to testify about is the White House meeting that happened in February 2017, where they agreed to the repayment plan that Weisselberg and Cohen had concocted. Okay, so yeah, maybe they concocted this scheme to gross it up, et cetera, and how to do it. But Cohen's going to say, we met in the White House to make sure Trump was okay with it. Why? Because Trump is somebody who was personally involved in the details. He was frugal. He was somebody who isn't going to part with money without having a conversation about it, and if it didn't benefit him. So there's already been evidence that corroborated that this meeting took place. Don't forget Madeleine Westerhout, who was a very powerful witness, I think, for both sides. She gave stuff for both sides, but her critical thing that she testified that helped the prosecution. She was the the aide who sat outside Trump's office and the Oval Office and sat out right outside and could kind of see everything that was going on. She testified that there was a meeting in February of 2017. She had a calendar entry that proves when it was. Again, corroborating the prosecution's case, pretty powerful. So that was something, that was also something that I think is going to be a big part of his testimony. We also heard from Jeffrey McConney, who testified about that handwritten note I talked about. I think that was very, very powerful evidence. And then Sally Franklin, who was a senior vice president at the book publisher Penguin Random House, quoted Trump's books in his own words about his check signing and practices. And, for example, in Think Like a Billionaire, in How to Pinch Pennies, he said, "I received a check for 50 cents and we at the Trump organization deposited it. They might call that cheap. I call it watching the bottom line. As I said before, I always sign my checks so I know where my money is going. In the same spirit, I always try to read my bills and make sure I'm not being overcharged." So that, in some ways, some people would say that that's, that stuff was the all the excerpts from all his books that were read into the record are not that powerful of evidence. But frankly, I think that's incredibly powerful because so much of his words are in the several books that he published himself, and they put that into evidence. And those are the defendant's own words admitting to what he's like, what his business practices are like, what he believes in. And that's just going to be very powerful evidence for the jury to corroborate Michael Cohen. Because again, don't take Michael Cohen's words for it. These are all things that support exactly what he's going to say came across. Now, what's going to be the hardest part about Michael Cohen, I think, on cross-examination that we're not going to get to today. I think he's going to be on direct for multiple days, probably all day today, all day tomorrow. There's no court Wednesday. We might get to cross-examination by Thursday. And then I am sure, because there's no court Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're going to want to work on their cross over the weekend. So I anticipate that he'll still be on cross into the following week. We'll talk a lot about what I anticipate on cross based on how his direct comes out, and I'll be following that closely, Ben. But one area that I think is going to be, or two areas that I think are going to be hugely part of their cross-examination is, number one, they're going to say he has a vendetta against Donald Trump, that he hates Donald Trump. And I think he'll explain it by saying, look, I did time for him. He was supposed to pardon me and he didn't. He was supposed to give me a place in the administration and he didn't. And I did all this stuff for him. And he's, he's a sociopathic liar. And he doesn't care about anybody. And I spent time in prison for something we did together. I was doing it for him. That's got to make someone really angry. And I think the jury's going to understand that. And I think that's going to resonate with them. But I think we're going to hear a lot of that, a lot of his hatred. And they're going to bring out every single thing about the times he has talked about that. The other thing I think that they are going to cross-examine him on is the fact that, he committed crimes that didn't involve Trump, like his taxi medallions, et cetera. And, we're going to hear about that. And the third thing I think is going to be, they're going to have watched every episode of every podcast. I'm sure there are paralegals who are watching every episode of every podcast, every public statement on TV, everything that's ever been said or written. And they're going to look for inconsistencies about his story. And they're going to use his own words against him, because there are so many times that he has talked about this. And so we're going to hear a lot about that, if there are any inconsistencies at all. So who knows? But those are the areas, the big broad strokes areas that I think we're going to we're going to see covered. I think the Midas Touch Network is going to be brought up. I think your podcast is going to be brought up. So we're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff too. So that's what I anticipate. And go ahead.
Well, you and I will be back this afternoon. We'll break down everything that happened during the trial proceedings today. Anything else, Karen, before we go?
Nope, this is a big deal. This is the make or break moment of the trial. It's a very big deal. And I think this is important for everyone to pay attention.
Everybody, make sure you hit subscribe. It's free to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Karen and I will be back in several hours after the trial proceedings conclude today. We'll give a full recap of everything that went down today. On Monday, of course, we also have the Brothers podcast that goes live 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific. We'll recap everything as well. Karen, thanks as always. Thank you, Legal AFers, and moments away from trial beginning. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.